My partner, who is 58, and I, who am 40, are struggling in our relationship. We have been together for nearly 18 years and have 2 kids, ages 3 and 6. We have an unresolved conflict that started when he fell asleep while our 6-year-old daughter was left in the backyard, which was 60 days ago. He stonewalled me for weeks after that and brushed away any attempts for me to connect, including hugs, caresses, and normal conversation. I stopped trying after he ignored me when I was upset and almost crying about something related to our daughter, something unrelated to him or our conflict. He maintains that I need to go to therapy to fix what he perceives as the core issue in our relationship. Me repeating myself to him. A couple of days ago, I told him that I think we have other issues besides that, and that I'm open to going to therapy and working on this repetition issue, but only if it's going to be a mutual effort where he also works on making changes and addressing issues related to his behavior. I also told him during that conversation that I don't feel safe with him, in the sense that I no longer feel like he holds space for my feelings, and that I often find myself on edge trying not to make him explode. He typically yells at me at least once a day, and it's always my fault, of course. He thought that my feeling unsafe was the greatest insult he's ever experienced and hit the roof. That night, he went out in a rage to be with someone who doesn't think he's unsafe. He came home past midnight, allegedly having been to a bar and then to his studio. The next night, he went out with a friend who lives out of town. He came home not too late, around 1 in the morning, because I've been ill and he knew he had to take the kids in the morning. Then, last night, he worked and came home at 3:30 in the morning because he needed an escape from reality. When tidying our hall this morning, I found a receipt among his things on the floor. It was for a packet of condoms, bought in the afternoon after our fight. I'm devastated. What do I do now? If I confront him, he's going to tell me that it's not for him, or that it's because he's treating his psoriasis, which is affecting his penis, something he has done in the past. I'm confident that would be a lie, since the condoms are not in his cupboard in the bathroom, and he doesn't have the cream he would use either. I'm pretty sure he's being unfaithful. How can I gather evidence without snooping on his phone or otherwise intruding on his privacy? Should I just let it slide? Should I address it when we're finally with a therapist? More context. We've barely spoken the past 2 months, apart from discussions about family logistics. He works nights at a concert venue 2 to 3 nights a week, sometimes 4, and often spends late nights in his studio. We see each other at breakfast usually, and that's about it. Occasionally, he's around for dinner and bedtime too, once or twice a week. It's been like this for the past year. When I tell him I feel abandoned, he says that he doesn't want to talk about feelings. He feels forced to have this job and resents having to pay 1/3 of our bills. I used to be able to cover nearly everything with my salary, but that's worsened significantly over the past 3 years due to the skyrocketing cost of living. For the past 7 years or so, my partner has been financially dependent on me due to his failing career as a musician. Since he's an artist, he has insisted on not having a normal full-time job. He resents this dependence, as do I. To cover bills and family expenses, I have to spend my entire salary plus any money gifted to me by family instead of buying myself something nice. I have even had to take out private loans from my family to make up for his lack of income. He also frequently borrows money from his elderly mother to cover bills a few times a year. I know there are many red flags. We've had many ups and downs, but have stayed together out of love, carried by the memories of the first 5 or so years we were together, which were fantastic. He's usually a very warm and loving man and a great father to our kids when he's around. I'm not sure we can ever get back to a place of true connection, though. Should I at least try? Any help or advice is appreciated. What's not helpful, though, is telling me to run. I can't practically do that for the time being due to the kids and my job. We live in an expensive city, and there's currently no way for us to split up and remain in our neighborhood where our kids have their friends, schools, and so on. Perhaps I should just keep it together and make things work until I'm able to maintain our life financially on my own. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, but if you have been the one paying for everything all the time, why do you need him? Just kick him out. He is just more weight on your back than you can carry. Yeah, you will cry and miss him sometimes for a few months, but things will get better. No more nights waiting for him, wondering where he is and with whom. He is not even supporting you emotionally. He found what you said as an excuse to get out of the situation and freely do what I am sure he was already doing, or at least planning to do. He is using you. Whatever you do, he is not coming back to you anytime soon. Until he sees you are not playing games anymore, that is when he will come back crawling. But you already know he is using you to support him financially, and if he ever gets to succeed, you will be thrown to the curb because you will not be needed. It is not my intention to sound rude, but there is no other way to say it. Sorry for your situation, but you already know this is true. Comment 2. So what the heck do you think people are going to tell you to do? You don't want to hear run, so I'll tell you what to do. Stay in this horrible relationship. Stay there and watch your husband neglect your children. Stay there and know that you can never depend on your husband or leave your kids alone with him. Stay there and know that by the time your children become teenagers, they will resent you and him. Stay there and know that by the time your kids are teenagers, they are going to give you as much trouble as you two give each other. Just stay and create a horrible, toxic home for you and your children, and then come back here again and ignore more advice. Now, for the update. Just over 2 days have passed since my last update, and things are still pretty rough around here. The kids are at daycare while I'm left handling everything. My partner is still pretty much a ghost in this house. They came back late last night from some gig they had, and they were just exhausted and barely even spoke. I tried to chat about the kids, what they did today, what they ate, regular stuff, but they just brushed it off and headed straight to bed. I was about to go up after them when I noticed a text notification pop up on their phone from some unknown number. My partner grabbed the phone right away, looking really annoyed. They said it was just a promotion. Sure, a promotion. And up until now, I haven't looked at their phone, but I feel like I'm getting pushed to the point where I might have to. The weekend was coming, and we had plans to attend a birthday party for one of the kids from daycare. It was for a kid we didn't even know, but hey, it was a chance to get out of the house. At the party, my partner seemed really distracted. They kept checking their phone every 5 minutes. I tried to keep things light and chat with other parents, but I could tell my partner was checked out. One of the fellow parents came up to me and mentioned seeing my partner out late the previous weekend. They hinted at some questionable behavior, which made my heart drop. I brushed it off as nothing, but I knew I had to ask my partner about it when we got home. So after the party, I asked my partner about their late nights, and they got defensive right away. They said I was being controlling and that I shouldn't question them all the time. I brought up that stupid receipt for the condoms I found, and I asked them for an explanation. They just dismissed it and said it was a mistake from a friend's prank. I wanted to scream. A prank? Really? This Sunday, we had a family dinner scheduled with my partner's family. Everyone gathered, and the atmosphere was just tense from the start. My partner's sister made a comment about their late nights, and that's when things got really bad. My partner snapped and said everyone should mind their own business. They stormed off, saying they needed air, leaving me to face the family alone. I was sitting there, trying to explain things, while everyone was looking at me with concern. My partner came back after a few minutes and immediately started shifting the blame, saying they felt attacked. That was rich coming from them. The tension got even worse when my partner's family started to side with me. They said they were concerned about the kids and wanted to know what was going on. My partner just lost it. They left the table, saying they would sleep at a friend's place. After my partner left, their family offered to help with the kids while I sorted things out. They could see that I was under a lot of stress. My partner eventually came back home, looking a bit calmer, but still distant. They said they needed to talk, but only when the kids were asleep. The only reason they agreed to talk was because their family was here, and I think they knew I would need the backup. The kids were totally unaware of the tension when they came home. They played together and were just happy to see their grandparents. It was nice to have a little bit of normalcy for a change, even though I could feel the weight of everything hanging over us. Edit. After the kids were asleep, my partner and I finally sat down to talk. They admitted to cheating. Am I the idiot for being honest about my past dating life and getting blindsided by my girlfriend's double standards? I met my girlfriend Abby via a group organized on Meetup 4 years ago. We became good friends for a few months, and then I revealed that I had a crush on her. We went on a few dates and then became exclusive. During this 6-month window between when we met and when we became exclusive, I was dating around, mostly using online dating apps. I had 2 girls I would hang out with and occasionally hook up with, but I knew I did not want to call them my girlfriend, as we did not fully click and had compatibility issues. They were also cool with the situation, so it wasn't like I was leading them on. Once things seemed to be taking off with Abby, I slowed down on seeing them, and when Abby brought up exclusivity, I happily agreed and broke up with the 2 other girls. Again, I want to reiterate that I tapered off on seeing these other girls as my relationship with Abby was blooming, and then I cut them off as soon as exclusivity was mentioned. I do not and had never considered this dynamic cheating or anything like that. This past weekend, Abby and I were hanging out with a friend, a 25-year-old woman, who had also been dating around and just had the guy she actually wanted to date dump her because he found out she was seeing other people on the side. I asked if they had had the exclusivity or officially dating conversation, and she said no. There were no rules in place, and it had only been about 3 months, so she had been on occasional dates with other guys, but didn't see much potential in them. Abby said that she didn't blame the guy, and she recognized that it was a bit of a gray area, but personally, she would consider what the friend did cheating. Even if there was no official rule about dating other people, the friend shouldn't have dated anyone else if she really wanted to be with this guy. I didn't really say much after that, since I was in the same position before Abby and I started dating. It's been a few days since this conversation, and I'm feeling guilty and conflicted. Should I tell Abby that I semi-dated other people after telling her I liked her, or should I keep it quiet? Technically, Abby and I never had the conversation, and there was no seeing other people rule in place for the first few months, so I didn't think I did anything wrong, but I also worry that I'm just trying to use a loophole. If she genuinely views it as cheating, then I feel like I did something wrong, and I should tell her now so that way she hears it from me and it is as gentle as possible. But I am also scared that this will destroy an otherwise great relationship over me breaking a rule that I didn't know existed at the time. How should I proceed? To add, thanks everyone for the feedback. I will tell her tonight. Every time I've tried to justify myself, I feel like I'm using loopholes and technicalities, and I know that's not honest. I don't want to lie to Abby. I can only hope that she understands, and we just had different perspectives on this, and that it won't go too horribly. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. If you're having intimacy with other people while pursuing a relationship, I think that person has a right to know. I personally wouldn't pursue someone who was casually having intimacy with not just one other person, but multiple. Your views toward intimacy in this regard are incompatible, so it may end your relationship. Even when you knew it was getting serious, you were still sleeping with others. If this relationship ends, maybe just be a bit more upfront next time and not wait for an official talk before disclosing the fact you were sleeping with others. Did you get an STD check before sleeping with your girlfriend? Comment 2. I think she's going to see it as you sleeping with 2 other women for 6 months while leading her on. To her, it's disrespectful and shows you didn't really care about her. She had a right to know that you had multiple other intimacy partners. Plus, you look like a guy who uses women, lies, and doesn't respect her. If you tell her, she'll likely react accordingly. If she finds out from someone else, it will be worse. Now, for the update. 2 days after I told Abby about my past, she texted me saying she wanted to meet at our usual diner. I got there early, Honestly, just anxious as hell about how she'd react to me being a jerk before we were even a couple. I was super nervous. When she walked in, she looked tense. Not even the cute kind of tense. Just like, I want to punch someone kind of tense. She plops down, starts talking about how busy work has been, and I'm just sitting there like, okay, I guess we're not talking about the big issue just yet. Eventually, she brings up our last conversation. I brace myself, expecting her to go off on me. She says she's been thinking about what I said a lot, and I'm just trying to keep my cool. Then she says she feels betrayed by my past dating. Like, what? I was so confused. She mentions thinking we had a mutual understanding about exclusivity from the start, and that surprised me even more. I mean, we talked about exclusivity, but not until we were officially a thing. She asks if I've been honest about everything, and I'm like, yeah, like, what else would I lie about? She just nods, but looks a bit off. Then her phone buzzes on the table. She glances at it, frowns, then puts it away like it's nothing. She tells me she needs some space to process everything. I'm like, okay, I can do that. The next day, I tried calling her, but she didn't answer, which was unusual. Her phone was like an extension of her hand usually. So, I sent her a couple of texts, but she didn't respond to those either. I started getting worried. A few days later, we had a dinner planned with her family for her brother's birthday. At the dinner, Abby seemed so distant. She barely spoke to me, like I was some random dude they just invited. When it was time for cake, she suddenly got up and stepped outside. I was confused, but figured she just needed air. I went after her and found her outside on the phone, whispering urgently. That felt off. She saw me and quickly put her phone away, acting all casual, but her hands were shaking. I was unsettled, but didn't want to seem like I was snooping, so I let it slide. I thought maybe it was just work-related stress. Later that week, I ran into Abby's sister at the grocery store. She mentioned that Abby had been really stressed lately and hinted that it wasn't just about work. My alarm bells were going off. I wondered if it was related to our recent convo. I decided to give Abby some more time, but the tension was so intense during our next few interactions that I felt like I was in a sauna. A week passed with barely any communication, and I could feel the gap between us widening. One evening, I got a text from Abby asking to meet again, this time at a park near her house. When we met, she looked even more anxious. Before I could even say anything, she tells me she needs to be honest. She reveals that she's been talking to someone else, a guy from work. She says it's complicated. I felt blindsided. We had literally talked about loyalty just weeks prior. She says she doesn't want to cheat but is confused about our relationship since my confession. I tried to reason with her, mentioning that we were exclusive, but she didn't seem convinced. Then she says she needs to figure out what she wants and suggests we take a break. I was taken aback. I asked if she was dating this guy, and she admitted they'd gone out a few times. She just looked so guilty. We parted ways, and I walked home in a daze, just trying to process everything. A few days later, I see on social media that Abby was with the other guy at some local festival. The post was tagged with friends and family, including her brother. That made it feel even more real. Like, what the hell was happening? I confronted Abby about the post through text, and she responded coldly, saying I needed to let her go. At that point, it was like a light bulb went off. I finally understood the implications of my initial confession and the fallout it caused. Edit. After posting, I realized I hadn't mentioned that Abby and I had already been intimate before my confession. She mentioned feeling misled, especially since I was still seeing other people at that point. Our differing views on exclusivity played a big role in her actions. I didn't know how to explain my past without it affecting our relationship. Am I the idiot for finally standing up to my two-faced mother-in-law at my own birthday dinner? My 31-year-old mother-in-law, who is 65 years old, and I first met when I started dating my husband, who is 30 years old, 7 years ago. She had asked me about my job and my family, and then immediately afterwards, apparently told my husband to consider dating the daughter of a prestigious family friend who was a lawyer. This attitude hasn't let up until today. She is constantly nice when I'm around, then speaks poorly about me once I'm not there, usually to my husband's siblings and even to my husband himself, over which he has gotten into several fights with her over the years, the last one being last month. Last year, she even referred to me as his first wife to his brother, insinuating that it's a matter of time before we get divorced. Fun fact, she is a second wife. She clearly thinks I'm a gold digger, and it's driving me crazy thinking about it because we see her every weekend and she acts so polite and diplomatic to my face, asking me how my family is and all. This is interesting because she has spoken poorly about my mom and siblings to my husband as well. When my husband entered real estate, she was always saying things about making sure not to just use it to house family, and I know she's talking about mine. For context, my parents were divorced, and I grew up providing for my single mom and my siblings as soon as I was able to get a job. When I met my husband, I had been working for 5 years at a dead-end job at a sewage company. My husband is from an extremely prestigious family, and while they are not in the top 1%, they are extremely wealthy, especially in my eyes. I actually cried several times when I met his relatives because they were so rich and unbothered. I can't explain, but kind of removed from normal society. And we had so little. I didn't actually know this about his family until months into our dating. When we first started dating, I was making the same amount as him, but at the time we got married, he was making 10 times my salary. So when we got married, my husband promised that I wouldn't have to worry about anything and that he would take care of me and even my family if they needed it. As long as I needed to get my mental health back together from the shambles it was in, I was suicidal. Long story. He wanted me to quit because he said it hurt him to see me that way. So I did. Because my family's situation has somewhat improved, I haven't asked him to pay for anything for my family my entire marriage, except when I wanted to buy gifts or something. My family has no issues with my husband, nor does the rest of his family with me. It's just his mother. Things are great between my husband and me. But it's bothering me that there's so much conflict between me and his mother, because I'm usually someone who directly deals with such things. I have been told that it's my husband's job to deal with his mother, not mine. I think my husband is starting to get worried that I'll leave him because of his mother. I won't, but I want things to be better, because my visits to his family functions are becoming nightmares for me, as I have to fake being happy to be there, and it's affecting how I deal with the rest of his family. I feel so horrible because I don't, and I never will make as much money as my husband. And honestly, money has never been an issue between him and me. As I grew up in a very different way of life than him, I've always had a backup plan for anything to survive, so I don't even think of his family or their assets as something for me to count on. I'm currently studying and shifting careers because I can't imagine this being a permanent situation regarding stability. I've seen a lot of families go insane over stuff like that, and it just doesn't matter to me. But for me, what's more important is fixing my relationship with her, just because I love my husband and I want to make things easier for him. But it's like she's so stubborn, and I've tried for so long to show her who I really am, and she just refuses to see it. His entire family says that this is who she is. She will never change, and that they accept me, so I shouldn't worry about it. But I can't. It feels like this huge hater looming over my life, belittling me constantly. I don't know what to do or how to change my perspective to digest this. To add, I think I received so many responses, and everybody's saying the exact same thing. It's been difficult for me to think clearly, and I believe I've finally gained some outside perspective. I'm going to limit my time and efforts with her and work on not feeling guilty about it. Thanks to everybody who replied. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. The only winning move is not to play. You need to learn about the gray rock method. It's fantastic for situations like this. You just act as neutral as possible. It's hard to get used to at first because you so badly want to say something, but literally nothing you can say, do, or achieve will change your mother-in-law's attitude. So it's like, okay, fine. That meme comic where the group just gives a big thumbs up and then goes back to talking. That's how you gray rock with unreasonable people. How's your family? Good, and just nod your head. Don't give her any information since she just uses it to stir up trouble. She'll probably get worse for a little bit, but don't give in. It's the hardest part. You're establishing a boundary and need to hold it while she tries to tear it down. Your husband has your back, so you're not doing this alone. Comment 2. I come from a family like your husband's, and for us at least, there is an unspoken rule about dating down. I laughed out loud, sorry, because I have a black sheep of a cousin with a first wife too. Anyway, you can stop focusing on the financial aspect because it isn't about money, it's about class, and nothing you do will ever change their perception of you. There is nothing you can do, no level of success, that will change this dynamic. I mean this to be more freeing than hurtful, so hopefully you read it in the spirit intended. I wish you luck and happiness. Now, for the update. A month went by since the last family gathering. I thought we could have a break from the mother-in-law's comments and criticisms, but nope. My husband planned a surprise birthday dinner for me at our house. As he described how he wanted to do decorations and everything, I felt excited. Then, he casually mentioned he invited his parents, including the mother-in-law. I know he meant well, but I started feeling anxious. I asked him if he thought this was a good idea. He reassured me he would handle any difficult situations. I wanted to believe him, but it was hard to ignore the dread I felt in my gut. The night of the dinner finally arrived. I was surprised at how beautifully everything was set up. My husband went all out with the decorations and the food. The guests started to arrive, and I was so happy to see my friends. Then came the parents, including the mother-in-law. As soon as she walked in, she started critiquing the decorations. I tried to brush it off, but it really set the tone for the rest of the night. Dinner was served, and it was amazing. Everyone was talking and laughing, but the mother-in-law decided to make a snide remark about my cooking. I could feel the tension in the air. My husband noticed me clenching my jaw and tried to lighten the mood, but it was clear that the mother-in-law was determined to make me uncomfortable. As the night went on, she kept undermining me in front of everyone. At one point, she had the nerve to bring up the idea of a real anniversary gift, implying that I should do better. I could feel my husband's anger rising, and he finally spoke up. He reminded his mother that my efforts should be appreciated. She scoffed and said that wealth defines success in relationships. I stayed quiet, trying to enjoy the evening with my friends. After dinner, I needed a moment of calm, so I stepped outside for some fresh air. One of my friends noticed and joined me. She had seen how the mother-in-law was acting and suggested we pull a prank on her. The idea sparked something in me. I felt determined to address the situation. When we went back inside, the guests had moved to the living room for dessert. I served cake, and the mother-in-law made another comment about my lack of taste in desserts. I calmly responded that the cake was from a local bakery, not made at home. Everyone laughed, which lightened the atmosphere, but the mother-in-law looked displeased. After dessert, I announced a fun game we could all play together. It involved sharing embarrassing stories from the past. The mother-in-law joined in, not wanting to be left out. As the stories unfolded, everyone laughed, including my husband, who shared a funny childhood memory. Then the mother-in-law attempted to share a story that made me look foolish. I quickly countered with a story about her own embarrassing moment from family history. The guests erupted in laughter, turning the focus away from her. Her face turned red, and she fell silent for the rest of the evening. The night ended with the guests leaving. My husband praised me for my bravery, and for the first time in a long time, I felt proud of myself. The mother-in-law didn't say a word to me while leaving, which felt like a small win. The next day, I decided it was time to set some boundaries. I talked to my husband about limiting future interactions with the mother-in-law. He was supportive and agreed it was for the best. I realized I needed to focus more on my own family and my mental health. Edit. My husband and I have been married for 8 years. We have one child. My husband is an only child. His father and mother have been married for over 40 years. The party was meant to be a surprise, but my husband told me about it a week in advance. The prank idea was mine, and my friend helped. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.